Hey guys, I want to do a Golden Age video about something that's pretty fun for me, and that is trying to construct the world of the 40s, um, the world where the comics are created, the world where the kids are buying the comics. Um, I feel like, once you get a few Golden Age comics, for me, like I want to expand that. Like I wish I could have clear more pictures of newsstands and like I wish I could talk to someone who regularly bought comics at the time. I found some cool posts by a few guys who bought some timelies, or maybe it was just one guy, but on the CGC forums. I'll have to dig that up and maybe talk about that because that was really interesting. But it was a little bit into the Golden Age, and I'd really like. I wonder if there's a book or something describing. I'd love to know all the details, like what the street sounded like. If it was like in New York City, what were the sounds, what were the smells, what were they drinking, what else would you spend that money on? Just what was on the radio. Like I just love the details that surrounded it. And this detail, I'm not sure how I figured this out. And, I'm sure a lot is probably basic knowledge to a lot of people, but it just never occurred to me for some reason. And that has something to do with how you would buy these comics. Now, most people know pretty much every Golden Age comic was at least 10 cents, right? You spend your dime on a comic, and there's various accounts of what a dime, was worth compared to what a dime's worth today, or what you could buy with a dime back then versus today. It's a pretty cool page right there. But so I always would picture in my head, without really thinking about it, but if someone were to say, like, well, what would they have bought their Golden Age? How would the kids bought their Golden Age? I would have said, like, well, yeah, they'd give them a dime, or 10 pennies, or 2 nickels, and that'd be that. But I had never, and I'm not even sure how I came across this or thought of this all of a sudden, but if you bought a Golden Age comic up to 1945, then with a dime, you would have had, you ready for this? You would have never bought one with the dime, you would have bought one with this dime. This is called the Winged Liberty Head dime, or the Mercury dime, although apparently it's not really Mercury, the guy Mercury, but and yep. See, the back's different too. And I don't know, it just blew me away. I was like, whoa. My whole like image was like totally off. These, I really like the design of these. A few, they pretty much feel like regular dimes. Most of these are tarnished. They're pretty cheap. You can get, most of these were like $1.50 or $2. I think this one maybe is the best one, and it's it was like 12. I think you could spend up to like 200. I'm not really a coin guy or anything, but there are some coin shops around here, and those guys are pretty cool if you get them into talking. And there's just great history. But, you know, forever change. Like, when I see that 10 cents now, unless it's a mid to late 45 or 46, yeah, they paid with a dime, it was with this. So I found that very interesting. And then the more I looked into it, of course, there was some other stuff. For instance, if you were using nickels, then up until, let's see, 1938, you would probably give them two of these boys, often called the Indian head or buffalo nickel. They were made from 1913 to 1938, so there was plenty of these around, you know, but in the early golden age. It's a really nice coin, I think. And then, of course, in sorry, the stupid focus. In 1938, they went to the Jefferson nickel, which is the same one we have now. Actually, I think that one might be a little different now. I haven't really kept up with what's going on. But what's interesting is that from 1942 to 1945, during World War II, they wanted to nickel. The material was very valuable for what was that used for? It was used for, sorry, it was like armor plating, I believe. So maybe like tanks or maybe planes or something. But it was very, very useful during the war. So, and since the nickel had lots of nickel in it, obviously, then during 42, 43, 45, they made one. The government said, all right, you can do 50% copper, 50% silver. And they went with something that only contained 35% silver, but what copper, 35% silver, and then some other metal, I think, but I didn't write it down. But so during those years, it just looks the same pretty much. I think there's a marking. There's some marking that's apparently pretty. Oh yeah, right here. See that big D? Because they wanted to make sure they could identify these things. And often you can tell, you could still find these apparently, and you could tell, you know, by the year obviously, but also they're usually oxidized a little bit from the silver. And I think they're only worth like maybe $1 or, you know, a nice one probably 20 or 30 or probably more, I don't know. But I think I got these for like $1 something. But I thought that was pretty cool. And then this one, I had no idea. Sorry, stupid focus. This one really blew my mind. Another Way. In 1943, only in 1943, which I think is when this came out. May 43, so yeah, came out in March. I believe that's what this little in pencil quote date stamp was. Probably D for delivered, 3/24, March 24th, 1943. You know, speaking of Stan Lee, who just passed away, this would be during the years where he was not the editor. He was serving the war. And Vincent Fargo, I believe his name, was the editor when he was gone during the war. So he had taken over. But, okay, so check this out. During that year, you could pay with these 10 of these bad boys right here. Bad boys, I don't know. It's weird, but 10 of these. Now look at that. Something seem odd with these pennies? That's right. They're coated in zinc, and on the inside is steel. Yes, copper was another hugely needed material during the war. It was used for all kinds of things. A lot of new electronics were made. All the wires for radios and inside, planes and tanks and all that were made out of copper. And, ammo shell casings. So copper was again also in need. And I'll show you the difference there. And it is the only, this is the only US coin that's, there might be some like weird special collector's coin or something maybe, but it's the only coin that was actually used in circulation that is able to be picked up by a magnet. Pretty neat, huh? One thing that I found interesting, and I'm gonna have to research this further, was that there was a lot of issues with these coins and even the nickel, apparently, regarding counterfeiting and causing just lots of problems because it was getting stuck, and was with vending machines. And there is a common way of often vending machines and arcade machines of today, or the 80s or whatever, often would have some sort of magnet in there, so that as you put the coin in, if it's magnet, which is usually what they would make counterfeit quarters out of, I call it slugs. Some people call them slugs, but when you put it in, it would fall down the chute, and before it would trigger the switch that would give you the credit or whatever, get you the soda or whatever, it would boom, hit on this magnet, and then it would jam the machine unless you press the button, which I think would somehow release this and it would come out. But or I think there was some where it would just pull it to another like chute or something to get rid of it, and maybe lose it, or it would just shoot it out back at you. But this, when they introduced these, was causing all kinds of problems, because I guess there was vending machines, a lot of vending machines with for pennies, and then apparently something to do with the nickel. I didn't really spend too much time on that, but I just found it interesting that there was, I just wouldn't have thought there was vending machines back then. I could see maybe like a Coke or something, or I think they were pretty simple. Like you put the coin in and then you can like open the box. I'm not sure how it goes from there, but there are some pretty sweet looking like old Coke refrigerators that open from a coin, or stuff like that. But anyway, I just thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, any Golden Age book bought with a dime before 1945, but probably 46. These fine looking Mercury head. Anyway, take care guys. Thanks for watching.